The seven knocks. I still don't know whether what happened to me was a coincidence or a psychological breakdown or something else entirely. 3 years ago, my grandfather died. His final words to me were strangely specific. If someone knocks exactly 7 times after midnight, don't answer. At the funeral, everybody laughed when I brought it up. They said he was delirious from the medication, and eventually I forgot about it. Fast forward almost 2 years, I had moved into a tiny rented apartment on the edge of town. The building was old enough that the pipes groaned at night and the hallway light flickered every few minutes. My bedroom window unlooked, an abandoned railway line covered in weeds. And around 12:43 a.m., one rainy night, knock, knock, knock. Then a pause, then four more. Exactly seven. I froze. The weirdest part wasn't the knocking. It was that nobody rang the bell. I looked through the peephole. Nothing. The hallway was empty. Thinking it was just kids messing around, I opened the door anyway. No one. Not even footsteps. But there was a wet footprint. Just one. Facing towards my apartment. Not away from it. I was convinced myself I was overthinking it. Then things slowly became wrong. Every morning, one object in my apartment would be somewhere else. My toothbrush, a spoon, a famed photo. Nothing valuable ever disappeared, just moved. And I bought a cheap security camera. For 6 nights, nothing. The seventh night, the camera stopped recording at exactly 12:43 a.m. When it came back online at 12:46, my bedroom door, which I always slept with closed, was wide open. The police checked for intruders. Nothing. No forced entry. No fingerprints besides mine. Friends started avoiding me because I wouldn't stop talking about it. My girlfriend left because she thought I was becoming paranoid. I quit my job after going nearly a week without proper sleep. Eventually, I moved. The strange events stopped immediately. I almost forgot about the entire thing until last week. My landlord called. He sounded nervous. He asked me a question that made my stomach drop. Did you ever notice someone standing outside your apartment around midnight? Apparently, the tenant who moved in after me had been filing the same complaints. Objects changing places, 7 knocks, camera failure at 12:43, and he eventually disappeared. No signs of trouble, no signs of a struggle. Phone left charging. His wallet still on the table. Police classified it as a voluntary disappearance. Then my landlord said something he'd never mentioned before. Years before I rented that apartment, an elderly man had lived there alone. He was found dead after the neighbors complained about a strange smell. No family, no visitors. And according to the report, he had written the same sentence dozens of times on a scrap piece of paper throughout the apartment. If someone knocks exactly 7 times after midnight, don't answer. I requested the police file. There wasn't one. The landlord later admitted he'd invented that part of the story up because he thought it would give me closure. So now I honestly don't know which part of the story was real anymore. The knocks, the moved objects, my own sleep deprivation, or the landlord trying to comfort me with a lie that somehow matched my grandfather's last words almost perfectly. Sometimes I wonder whether or not the most terrifying thing isn't ghosts. It's how easily the human mind can build a prison out of coincidences. And for some reason, every year on the anniversary of my grandfather's death, I wake up at exactly 12:43 a.m. No alarm, No nightmare, just awake, waiting, listening, hoping I never hear those 7 knocks again. My search for the faceless man. Back in 1962, formaldehyde, the drug that devastated countless families, was taken off the market after the outcry from the general public became overbearing. How does that saying go? Oh, yeah. Regulations are written in blood. Now, what the fuck am I talking about this for? Well, most of the children had become accounted for in some way, raised at home, adopted, institutionalized, or unfortunately perished due to their congenital defects. Now, realize I said most, not all, most. In 1972, an orphanage on the northern shore of Long Island had burnt down, with the fire taking all of its records in the blaze. One thing is known, though. It was home to one of the few formaldehyde babies born in New York State, and his body was never recovered from the wreckage. Now, a body not being discovered was very unfortunately par for the course for a situation like this. The orphanage wasn't just for orphans, it was for orphans with deformities and mental illness. Home for what those back in the day viewed as the dregs of society. So who was really looking for them? I am. Specifically for the formaldehyde boy. There's something special about him. The final worker who survived working at the orphanage, one of the few workers who escaped the blaze, claimed they housed a faceless formaldehyde baby. No one believed her, but I do. So I sat down with her for an interview at her house. It was an old, raised ranch style home with antique furniture, no electronics in the home besides an analog television, not even cable. The ticking of a large grandfather clock took over the quietness that loomed within the home as she thought of answers. You can take your time, I said, but I have to know. How the hell did this happen? She put her hand up and said, I'm I'm thinking. I don't know how he became faceless, but he survived. A tracheotomy was performed to help him breathe, along with giving him a G tube. He thrived, but he was put down by so much staff. I worked in that place because I felt for those children. They were neglected and abused by everyone, from their parents who gave them up to the staff at the orphanage. I couldn't stand to see it, but I was one person. She began to tear up, so I pushed the tissue box closer to her. She sniffled a bit and wiped her eyes, then continued. I don't know how, but it was as if he could see. I know he could hear, he had ears, but no eyes, obviously. How the hell could a boy like him see? 3 days before the fire, he took a piece of blank paper from the stack I was holding and drew, using black crayon, some kind of angel, a winged creature, and he pointed to where his eyes would have been if he were born with them. Then the fire. I caught him with a box of matches. He set the fire and then carried me out of there. He was 10 years old, strong as a bull, and was able to carry me out. He spared me. You showed him kindness, mercy, treated him like a human, I said, writing notes down on my pad. She nodded as she looked down at the table, both regretful and defeated. She rubbed her eyes again and stood up, beckoning me to leave. Before I left, I asked, have you ever seen him again? His name is William. Billy, I called him. The only place he knew as home is where you may find him. He wasn't there for years, but I get news from some people around that neighborhood I used to live in. Some of the people, they know me. I have friends there that still live there after all these years. The rubble is recently being cleaned, and they're building a school there. He's been seen at a distance at night. But please, don't go. He's a very angry man. Thank you, I reassured her, and was on my way. Of course, I went looking for him. Every night for 2 weeks, I went to the build site and waited for hours. One time, waiting till the sun came up. I'd sit on the same folding chair for hours, sometimes seeing a mirage in the distance, causing me to grip the edge of the seat so hard my knuckles would turn white and my heart would pound into my throat. But then I'd see it was nothing, a fat fucking waste of another night. Then I would nearly quit. I saw him, sitting at the building site on a Thursday at 11 p.m. He came crawling out of what looked like a makeshift tunnel. I could vaguely see his featureless face. He had hair, ears, a chin, but where his eyes, nose, and mouth would be was just a shapeless slate of skin. He put on a baseball cap, fastened his sweater, and began to walk around. I stayed in my seat, lifted up my phone to try and get a photo, turning off the flash, as to not disturb or alert him. But before I could even pick up my phone all the way, I saw him turn around and make a run for me. I got up, nearly falling over my chair, and just ran, leaving the chair and my bag of food behind. I sprinted like I had never before, but it wasn't any use. His feet slammed on the ground, with every strike like thunder, and he caught up to me in seconds. He reached his hand out and grabbed me by the neck, throwing me down on the ground. He flipped me over and slammed his fist into my face. I woke up in what seemed to be an abandoned rail station. There was the sound of a dripping water in the distance, random creaking noises, smell of mold and smoke. Looking around, I saw rotting on the walls and rusted pipes. A light came in from an adjacent room. I tried moving, but realized I was chained to a wall. I started to shake the chains and scream as loud as I could. It was no use. I couldn't get out. A shadow looked at the entrance, followed by its owner, the faceless man. I looked at him and I said, William? A voice echoed in my head. She told you the name? I winced in pain. Fuck. It felt like someone cracked me upside the head with a fucking hammer. My nose dripped of blood. The voice was quieter, softer now. You aren't used to it. My bad. But she told you. How the fuck are you doing this? I asked him. The angel imbued me with the sight and this power. I am chosen to bring forth retribution against humans. Retribution? That's. William got right in my face. I could see the hole where his trunk was. I could hear the air moving in and out as he got in my face. The voice continued in my head. Crazy. Was that the word you wanted to say? How crazy am I? And many others got deformed from a medication that the company lied to save their ass, and to save the Nazi prick who made the fucking thing. And if I'm so crazy, how do I have no eyes but I see? How do you hear me? My nose bled more and I passed out from the pain, the thunder in my head. After an unknown amount of time, I woke up. I looked down, saw dried blood on my shoes, and smelt the wet copper smell of my blood. William walked into the room carrying someone over his shoulders. It was the nurse. He threw her body down on the concrete floor. A groan of pain emancipated from her bruised mouth. What? What the fuck? I said, using all my energy to push out the words. The voice in my head came again, this time in a hushed tone. She gave my life away as a fucking sensationalist story piece. Turned me into an urban legend. A fetish for your shitty journalism career. How how did you know? I asked. I watch all that I can. I should have never saved her. You're all the fucking same. All of you. The thunder rattled in my head from the inside out. I winced in pain and shouted him to stop. He laughed. I could hear him laughing in my head as he laughed. He picked up the nurse and twisted her neck. An audible snap and then a quick pooling of blood at the base of her neck made me vomit all over my shirt. And he kept laughing. Swift judgment. But for you, you took a while. So let's make sure your punishment, your judgment, does too. He grabbed my arm and yanked it. I cried out in pain, but asked, why? How do you know it's not a demon fooling you? She told me it didn't look like an angel. William slapped me and grabbed my neck. Shut the fuck up, his voice boomed in my head. He grabbed my left arm and yanked and twisted it. I screamed and cried in pain, but he didn't stop. The laughing began in my head again. Then my arm came off. My vision began to go blurry as blood pooled from the socket where my arm was. He threw my arm on the floor and went for the other one. Just as he began yanking, I heard footsteps. They're screaming in here. A group of armed SWAT officers came running in the room. William turned around. One of the officers screamed, "What the fuck?" William jumped up and pounced on the officer. They raised their guns and opened fire on William. Then it was over. As William's body fell limp, full of bullet holes and torn flesh, my world went dark. I woke up in the hospital after being unconscious for 3 days. Supposedly, I needed a blood transfusion, tetanus shot, and so much more. I looked to my left, and the absence of my arm crushed me as I realized just how real it was. My 3 year long search had ended. I had the story, the police to back it up, but it didn't mean anything anymore. William was right. All people saw was a sensationalist story, but overlooked the dark nature of humanity. A boy was wronged, deformed by a drug that the company that made it denied the detrimental effects of, the drug made by a Nazi. We're all fucked up and maybe deserve some sort of retribution. Maybe William wasn't just a victim, but a reflection of our base nature, a sad, twisted, angry species, hell bent on revenge and power. Or maybe it's none of that. I don't know. All I know is that I need sleep and a new fucking job.